Welcome to the Bulldog State of Mind podcast, brought to you by the Fresno State Staff Assembly Executive Committee. Here are your hosts, Belinda Munoz and Melissa Norris.
Hello, welcome back to the Bulldog State of Mind. I am so excited about this episode. I have the pleasure of introducing a colleague of ours that I am very excited to share her with everyone else here. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Sharma during the Alegria Mental Health and Wellness. I was a co-chair and you came on as part of our team and we got to talking, and it was just so exciting to hear you and the passion and everything behind where your thought process and just this topic in general. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Belinda. Thank you, Melissa. Yeah.
We're glad to have you here today. I know you wear so many hats on campus. You're a professor and the chair to our Counselor Education and Rehabilitation Department. You're the founder and CEO of Coach Inspire, and you've dedicated a lot of your time and energy to doing research on purpose, meaning, and mental well-being as well, which is really what we get to dive into with you today, which I'm excited about.
Yes, I am excited too. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for those who would be viewing this episode or just listening in to our podcast. Really, thank you for your time. Yeah.
Well, let's get right into it. We have a couple of questions to ask you about all of the wonderful things that you have been doing. So we'd like to hear a little bit about your personal journey. So if you can tell us a little about your personal journey of discovering your purpose and what inspired you to focus on helping others in this process.
Sure. If it's okay, I want to start right where I got interested, in the topic of purpose, and then go deeper into why it became the topic of my research, teaching, and, counseling and coaching practice. It was around during my high school. That's the time when I was grappling with low self-esteem and anxiety because of my parents' depression and my mother's suicidal ideation. And at that time, one of my school teachers gifted me a book by a renowned Buddhist philosopher and peace builder, Dr. Daisaku Ikeda. And once I started reading that book, and especially the words that each one of you has a unique purpose that only you can fulfill, and that through awakening to and living true to our purpose, we can bring out the strength and wisdom that we need to continue to persevere on the path of realizing our various goals. I, for the first time, started engaging in some concrete self-reflective practices, engaging in community, to really be able to identify what role can I play for the sake of world peace and happiness of all, which I believe is our collective purpose. And, in the process, actually my parents overcame depression. And then when I was in my early 20s, I really determined to use my life to reduce depression and anxiety in society because I could see its impact, on our family. And that's when I decided to pursue my master's and PhD in counseling from here in US, Michigan State and Penn State universities. And during my PhD, when I was exploring what factors contribute to or protect people from depression and anxiety, countless research studies showed the power of sense of purpose. In fact, one study showed that sense of purpose plays a more protective role against feelings of depression and even suicidal ideation than even life satisfaction. And yet, right, we find ourselves chasing one goal, one achievement after another in the pursuit of satisfaction. But in critical moments, it's our purpose that protects us. And that's when purpose became my research, coaching, teaching, counseling topic.
That's very powerful. I think I resonate so much with what you're saying, because I think when you have that purpose, it really changes your mindset. It gives you something to move towards. And it's fascinating, the research behind that. Can you dive into a little bit more of some of the research you've personally done on purpose and meaning and what you found with that?
Sure. So during my PhD, when I began my very first research project that turned into my dissertation, I focused on creating a scale, an instrument that can assess the extent to which people are aware and confident of their purpose, the nature of their purpose, if it's altruistic or not altruistic, and also the process with which they're awakening to their purpose. The reason was because there's so many studies that had already shown the power of purpose, but there were lack of studies in how to foster sense of purpose among people from diverse age groups and backgrounds. And even if some studies took place, there were no ways to assess the quality of that study or the effectiveness of that approach in fostering purpose. So when I created the scale and then validated and published several studies on the scale, it was to be able to now my research focuses on how to foster sense of purpose, and I use that scale to evaluate the effectiveness of the interventions that I do to foster people's sense of purpose.
So, purpose. When we talk about a sense of purpose, there's just for our audience and everyone that's listening today. If you find yourself in a place where you're like, this is my purpose, right? I think we all wake up one day or we're in the middle of something and we think, yes, this is my sense of purpose. And then it's not going in the direction that we want. How do you keep that focus and not, what is your training on that? What do you tell people when they're not feeling like they are fulfilling that sense of purpose? What are your thoughts on being able to tell our audience, how do you keep moving forward with that?
Yeah, I'm so glad, Belinda, that you are sharing this. It's really encouragement-based dialogues, because many times I've realized when people have reached out to me, for seeking counseling or coaching, or students seeking mentoring, or colleagues who are discouraged by ever-growing to-do list, and are feeling burnt out specifically. Many times we have found through the process of engaging in a dialogue, that is exactly what you were sharing, Belinda, that it's not so much that something is wrong with them or it's the life pressures that they're not able to handle. It's more about how disconnected they might be feeling from who they are and what they actually aspire to achieve, from their purpose. Research has actually, my research has highlighted 5 specific phases, to be able to strengthen our sense of purpose. I won't go too much in depth, but at practical level, what I can share is that purpose is not like this final destination that one day we would just reach and we stop growing and we stop fulfilling our potential and our life's mission. It's fluid, it's a process, it's a journey, right? So there is really no need to judge ourselves or have any sense of shame or guilt or insecurity in the context of our own journey when it comes to purpose. Some of us might be in the process of awakening to our purpose. So then what we need to do is explore who we are, our own socio-cultural identity, our life's experiences, our values that have shaped us, and exploring that would help us to solidify our sense of purpose. Some of us might be very clear about our sense of purpose, but those moments that you were referring to that might discourage us, or there's so many multiple roles and responsibilities that we all are doing our best to fulfill. For students who are here on campus, there are so many day-to-day realities that you have to grapple with. There is so much suffering that's happening in our world. So maybe you started your college education with one purpose in mind, but as you are witnessing the problems that our world is facing and really becoming more and more clear about your own unique strengths, your own passions, and how you want to advance a positive change, your own sense of purpose will deepen, and it's okay to make a shift. And what we need is right support, right encouragement at the right time. So never hesitating to seek out mentoring and, in that process, right? And then lastly, what I want to highlight is that research has shown that people awaken to and strengthen their sense of purpose by coming in touch with others who are also living life that is true to their purpose. So engaging in purpose strengthening dialogues, the way I have an opportunity to do with Belinda and Melissa today, is always a wonderful opportunity. So, please engage in purpose strengthening dialogues with your peers and colleagues.
How do we know when we are aligned with what our purpose is? Ironically, I was having this conversation with my husband just on the ride over, and we were talking about, what our purpose is and what we're supposed to be doing and what, the future is going to look like. And, sometimes I think I am fulfilling a purpose when it comes to campus. I'm, with you all here today, bringing and keeping in mind, mental health and wellness and the importance of it. But I don't always know if that's the right path I'm supposed to go to. So how do I know when you are in line with what your purpose really is? This is a passion of mine, like yours. I have not done the intense research as you have, but it is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Does that mean it's my purpose? How do I know? How do you validate the alignment of purpose?
Yeah, that's a wonderful wonderful question. And even if I've dedicated, right, so many, like 15 plus years, of my life to research and have published more than 30 articles, created a course to foster sense of purpose, I still struggle to not always feel this confident about, am I living life that's true to myself and my purpose? And I can share some barriers that come up for me, Belinda. Like one barrier that I have always noticed that comes up is that, am I doing what I am doing to seek external praise and validation and meet certain socio-cultural or work-related expectations, which I feel if I don't live up to, then I am not good enough. And for me, the real struggle is to really transform those moments of self-doubt, comparing myself with others, like really not believing in myself and only trying to respond to others' expectations or even the expectations just like that I keep putting on my own self based on what I feel, what it means to be an ideal mother or an ideal professor, or what does it mean to continue to have sustained productivity and success in career context. So I think for me, it's really about self-reflection and going deep into the fact that as long as I'm doing my best, one day at a time, one person at a time, one task at a time, to live true to my purpose, which is really to be able to impart hope and courage in others' hearts, then that's good. That's good enough. I don't have to constantly judge myself or force myself to be a certain way. So when we are not feeling so aligned, I think instead of being hard on ourselves or questioning too much in isolation, it's important to also just deeply appreciate how far you have already come and how much you have already accomplished and how much you mean to people, who are connected to you. And then all we can do is just our best.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you for being vulnerable and saying that you're not always in that state of confidence, because I think we're always in this nature of comparison to others where it's like, oh, but they seem so confident in what they're doing, but I'm not. And what does that mean? And so that self-talk that sometimes sneaks in can so easily happen. And I think there's power in knowing that you're not alone in that, and that there's points where we're feeling totally aligned with our purpose and others where it's like something is not fitting. And why not? So I appreciate that vulnerability, because I think that's important for all of us to hear and reflect on and have those conversations with other people. As you talked about before, talking to other people about this kind of dialogue around purpose, I think that's really an opportunity to kind of explore as well out loud.
I think we need to give ourselves some grace.
Yeah,
I think that, give ourselves some grace that we're not perfect. Mm-hmm. We're not here. No one else. I think we're harder on ourselves than anyone else. And I think we need to be able to just take a step back and say, okay, today maybe wasn't as productive as yesterday, but that's okay. And sometimes we need to take that break, that mental break away from all of our thoughts and feelings and everything, because when we have a sense of purpose, I feel like we always feel like we're on the treadmill, right? We're always go, 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 go. And sometimes we need to take that reflection and and praise ourselves. Yeah. Not just give ourselves grace, but praise ourselves and say, hey, we need to pat each other on the back and say, good job. And so proud of what you've accomplished this far. And yeah.
Yeah. One episode that reminds me of this moment when I really learned to appreciate myself was, I am a professor from underrepresented background, right? In the US, only 15% of women from underrepresented backgrounds have achieved highest promotion. Knowing that stats, when I started working as a professor, which honestly was not even my dream as a first generation student, right? I didn't even have this dream. It was during my master's in counseling program when I was really struggling, and then I had to go back to my India because my mother got diagnosed of cancer, and I was not sure how will I finish my master's program. At that time, my department chair, Dr. Robbie Stewart, she shared with me that she still remembers my statement of purpose that I wrote when I applied for master's program. And then she looked at me and she said, you are someone whose education should not stop with master's degree. You are someone who must continue your PhD and become a chair and be where I am so that you can continue to make a difference.
In you.
She really believed in me, right?
And here you are. Yeah.
And here I am,
Amazing.
right? And actually just few weeks back, I emailed her, like out of deep appreciation. And at that time, this was year 2009, right? We didn't have so many classes on Zoom, but she changed 2 courses into online courses so that I can take it from India while being with my mother. And I successfully finished my master's and then went on to PhD because she instilled this belief in me, and went on to apply because someone believed in me, right? And then yet, once I started working, with all the expectations, my baby was just 3 months old when I started working. Once I achieved my tenure and promotion and I received a very well-earned sabbatical, which I'm grateful for, I actually felt sick. I felt so sick with hives all over my body, painful joints. And then doctors said that it seems to be an autoimmune disorder triggered by prolonged stress. And, at that time, later on, all tests came negative, so it's not autoimmune. But I realized that I didn't even realize, right, like when this path of pursuing goals became so much, like I felt it was in line with my purpose, but it was giving also, like again, trying to meet all the expectations, trying to do my best as a mother, as a young professor, teaching, research, service, everything, right? Like, didn't even realize what was that point when my body started experiencing the impact of the stress. And at that time, someone I reached out to for encouragement, her name is Radhika, she shared that, from scientific and Buddhist philosophy perspective, it refers to not appreciating yourself for who you are, the symptoms and the struggles that you are expressing. And that's when I really engaged in my self-reflective practice to become someone who can deeply, deeply appreciate myself, irrespective of my flaws and achievements. And again, simply do my best, rooted in appreciation for others and the opportunities I continue to naturally get because I do want to live true to my purpose. So important to appreciate ourselves.
So how do we're surrounded by colleagues every day and students who are aspiring to just do so much. How do we keep them motivated? I know you talk about your journey and you had someone who inspired you. And although I'm sure you had many people along the way who were helping you and guiding you and providing good insight, but you have that one person that you remember. How do we keep our students and our colleagues, how do we be that person? Right. How do we continue to inspire them and be there for them?
Oh, thank you for this question, Belinda, because it really shows your sincerity, right, in being someone who can be there for our students and our colleagues in the moments when they might be struggling and be able to inspire them to continue to believe in their purpose and continue to move forward. I actually have a research paper that focuses on pedagogy of care in the context of fostering students' purpose. And in that paper, I have highlighted that more than the techniques that we can support our students with, for example, self-reflective techniques, certain tools that can help them to clarify their own values. When it comes to our colleagues, in the meetings that we are leading, we can have a discussion on values. We can talk about what's our intention for the year, what's our, long-term aspirations, what are some short-term goals that we are trying to achieve, so that we can at least hear and get to know each other's intentions and purpose, and then be more mindful in providing opportunities that resonate with their purpose and appreciating them when we see them making difference in line with their purpose, not just in line with what our expectations are from them. Right? That's one. But then, one thing that again I highlighted in this research paper is that ultimately it comes down to our humanity as educators, as mentors, colleagues. And with humanity, what I was referring to is this ability to be able to believe in other person's inherent worth and their profound purpose. The ability to not judge them based on their current circumstances and their current skill set, but to be able to have hope for their potential and their future, even in the moments when they don't have hope. So, for example, Dr. Steve, what I was referring to, because in that moment, my question to her was, I really want to be with my mom. It was a terminal illness. I knew she had limited time, but I also don't want to give up on this education, which was very close to my sense of purpose. And also, I know was bringing so much joy to my parents too. But in that moment, when I was doubting my ability to be able to do both, she was able to tap into her creativity and the resources she had and the power she had as the department chair to be able to make a decision that allowed me to do both, be with my mom, have no regrets as a daughter while pursuing my education. And one of my very first studies, I actually dedicated time to interview students at Fresno State about their sense of purpose and their motivation behind pursuing college and how we as educators can support their persistence. And it was so beautiful what I learned from the students here, because many shared that their purpose is to repay their gratitude to their parents for the immigration struggles they have gone through, and to one day be able to become a role model and inspire the future generation, of their cousins and siblings. So they already have this profound sense of purpose. It's our task to just keep reminding them and believing in it and providing them the resources and tools they need to achieve various short-term goals and then long-term goals in line with their purpose, and just again encouraging them wholeheartedly, rooted in our own humanity and compassion.
I love that. I think it's a good reminder that we're not only the ones who can bring that out in others, but that, we need it too and need it from the people around us. So I love that. I know earlier we talked about how stress and burnout sometimes kind of can cloud our experience of, are we living in our purpose, or are we truly, or is it the stress, is it the overwhelm of what's going on around me and in my life? I know you have your signature SPARK method. Could you talk just a little bit about how that method is used as an approach to be able to fight off that stress and burnout and turn that into that purpose and joy?
Absolutely. I was so excited when I launched, my Spark method and created an online course rooted in it to just make it accessible, to everyone, in the community. Basically, it focuses on how to move from feelings of being stuck, stressed, or overwhelmed into really living in line with our purpose, so that we can achieve lasting success without sacrificing our mental well-being. And then there are these 5 steps that I have realized, rooted in research, my own lived experiences. Many times I reflect back on, how did I overcome that situation, right? Like, what process did I go through in terms of my own thought processes, my own heart, my own emotions? Who did I reach out to? What words of encouragement was I able to hold on to? And how did I move forward? Our own lived experiences play such a critical role to be able to then make a difference, in others' lives. And then third, of course, 15 plus years of counseling and coaching, right? So step one of Spark method is to dedicate some time and space to explore what are the underlying reasons behind your feelings of being stressed, overwhelmed, or burned out. Because many times, especially in my conversations with women, many times when we start talking, they say it's lack of time. But when we dig deeper, it's not so much about lack of time. For many, it's about the guilt that comes up when they prioritize one task over another.
That hits home.
Very much so.
Really does.
So then it's so important to really go to the root cause of what's causing me overwhelm. It might be really lack of belief in our own self or lack of confidence in the fact that, my kids are 5 and 10-year-old. I travel for work all the time. And there was a time when I was grappling with so much guilt and insecurity around my travel. But then I realized, for what purpose am I parenting? I am parenting to nurture 2 kids who can be solid citizens of the world, who can advance a positive change in a way that's true to themselves. And I must role model to them what it looks like to fulfill my purpose. And that took away that guilt, right? So that's the first step, to spot underlying reasons behind our feelings of stress, overwhelm, burnout, rather than just assuming it's lack of time or something else. The second step is to pinpoint and become clear about our purpose, right? So, for example, engaging in activities that can make us even more clear about our values, engaging in dialogues where we can honestly share with our friends, what are my dreams? What are my hopes, and then solidifying that sense of purpose as we continue to move forward. Third step refers to really adopting some high impact time management and goal setting strategies. Because one thing is to be clear about our purpose, but real fulfillment and joy comes from moving on the path of fulfilling our purpose. So setting clear goals that are aligned with our purpose. And then, of course, in the pursuit of trying to do everything, we need to master time management rather than let time and demands master us, right? So for me, the trick that I tap into is power of morning. Like, I dedicate my morning to engaging in my self-reflective practice to really reflect on my intentions for the day, and then just really determining that I will be 100% present with whoever I have the opportunity to serve. So that's one. And then, next step focuses on reclaiming our self-worth and confidence, because most of the time, the real battle we need to win is within our own self, with our own self-doubt. So there are many research-based strategies to cultivate unconditional self-worth and overcome self-doubt that I focus on. And then the last step is to kindle meaningful connections so that we can have a strong support system to continue to move forward. And one analogy that I can close with in the context of this step is that, even a strong tree, right? Like, I picked up this analogy from writings of Nichiren Daishonin. He's a, Buddhist philosopher, scholar of, 13th century. And he was explaining that even a strong tree, if the stakes supporting that tree are not strong, will fall when the heavy wind blows. But even a weak tree, if the stakes supporting that tree are strong, will not fall with the heavy gusts of wind. Similarly, even a strong person can fall on an uneven path or when difficulties arise. But even a person who doesn't seem to be so strong will not fall if those supporting them are strong. So, there's this activity that I engage in to really help my students and clients reflect upon what is their support system and how we can strengthen their support system, their networking, their ability to advocate for themselves, their ability to communicate their own needs, their own goals, so that they can have the support they need to continue to succeed.
I love it, because the people around you are so important to being able to keep moving on that path. Yeah.
So, such good information. Thank you. You're sharing, and I'm just like, yes, Yes, that's right.
Well,
yes.
you can feel your passion for the subject,
Yes.
and I love that too.
Yes, and there's a couple of things that you said that just really resonated with me, and one was the time management and not allowing your time to manage you, and seeking that time. You make it a point. It's important to you, and you make it part of your morning to set your purpose for the day. I love that. Well, going into that, we have, a daily. Every day is a new struggle. Every day is, we get up and it's a new day. And we've got some new stuff that's going to be happening this semester. Something new that you're going to be taking on and being able to share with our audience coming this fall.
Yeah, I am really excited. I'm so grateful to Rhea Mental Health Task Force to empower me and provide me this support to launch Mental Health Breaks with Dr. Sharma as a new initiative that we are going to put forward, in which I would be sharing just brief videos that can support you to also engage in this Spark method. And then most importantly, to be able to effectively overcome those day-to-day struggles that are natural to arise. Because when we are moving forward, right, it's like an aeroplane, right? Like when it takes off, the first thing it meets is resistance. But it uses that resistance to go even higher, right? So when we decide our purpose, when we set goals through which we can live true to our purpose, some of the first things that would arise is resistance in form of our own self-doubt, our own feelings of overwhelm, others' doubts in us, lack of resources. So how to overcome these day-to-day barriers that Belinda was referring to, that's what I would be dedicating, these mental health break episodes with. And I am, just genuinely looking forward to continue to serve you. And if you need any specific resources, just don't hesitate to reach out to me. Best way is LinkedIn. That's where I continue to share, some resources and strategies. And yeah, I'm looking forward.
Looking forward to it as well. I think that's a great opportunity for us to continue this conversation on an ongoing basis, because I know we talk about time and having such a limited amount of time. These short little mental health breaks, I think, are to offer that great little outlet for people to just keep these things top of mind. As always, we always encourage our listeners to take action on the things we talked about today. It might mean leaning a little bit further into your purpose. It might be having a conversation with your colleagues. I loved that idea of understanding the purpose of your colleagues around you so that you can appreciate and acknowledge and recognize those things. Heck, maybe it's just reevaluating what your purpose looks like today or building that support system. But we do hope that you'll take all of the great information being shared today and really take that time for reflection.
Thanks for watching the Bulldog State of Mind podcast. Join us for the next podcast in our series, released each month during our Red Friday celebration and available through our Fresno State Staff Assembly Executive Committee YouTube channel.